Next tonight, the Scottish Government's Minister for Childcare is accusing Tavish Scott of throwing his toys out of the pram. Marie Todd, who is also an MSP for the Highlands and Islands, said the Lib Dems should back next week's budget if it includes more funding for ferries in the Northern Isles. She's been telling Ewan that Tavish's lack of support could cost Shetland dear.
After yesterday's debate about funding for ferries, during which Tavish was asked several times by both Derek Mackay and by Humza Yousaf if funding for ferries up in Orkney and Shetland was put into the budget, would he support the budget? And he didn't answer it. I really felt I had to write to them both and give them the opportunity to say loud and clear what the Lib Dems' position was on that. So that's what I've done.
And why do you think that they weren't answering it?
I think it's a very uncomfortable situation for them to be in. I think they have spent their whole careers saying that they put their constituents before their party, and I think that actually what the situation they find themselves in is that they're finding it very difficult to vote for the budget, for an SNP budget, because of the party that they belong to, and that means that they're letting down their constituents.
But their view would be because it would be subject to what else was in the budget in case there were things that they didn't agree with.
I would say that they have had plenty of meetings. You know, they should have been able to reassure themselves that their priorities would be reflected in the Scottish Parliament budget. The Scottish Government is a minority-led government. We need another party to work with us to get this through the Parliament. And that other party is in a powerful position to say, these are my priorities, these are our priorities, we want these reflected in the budget. Obviously, I have been advocating hard for the Northern Isles as a representative for there. Regardless of what happens, the negotiations will continue around fair funding for ferries. But I'm sorely disappointed that the local constituency MSPs couldn't state their support for putting fair funding into the budget next week.
How optimistic are you that it will be in the budget next week?
Unless they state they are going to support it, I don't think it will be. We will be back to negotiations direct with the councils, which is what's been going on for months.
That was Marie Todd. Ewan then asked Tavish Scott if he really was refusing to back the budget.
It's worrying that our ferries are going to be tied up tonight because of high winds, but the SNP seem to be determined to tie up our ferries permanently. Parliament last night voted to support Orkney Islands Council and Shetland Islands Council. The SNP voted against Orkney and Shetland. So Parliament's now spoken on the importance of financial support for our ferries in the islands, and we expect in the budget next week, not only we but Parliament expects the government to honour their commitment that they've made to our council officers and honour the will of Parliament and make sure that budget reflects the needs of the islands and the needs of running our ferries.
But why were you not able to confirm directly to Humza Yousaf yesterday that you would support the budget if it was included?
Yesterday, the SNP were determined to play political games, which continue today. What Humza Yousaf must now do is accept that Parliament, not just me, not just Liam MacArthur, but all of Parliament, the Conservatives, the Liberal Democrats, the Labour Party and the Greens voted to support the Orkney Islands Council and Shetland Islands Council and make sure that money is in next week's budget. Humza Yousaf can say what he likes, but next week, if he doesn't put it in the budget, he will have betrayed the islands from the commitments he made to council officers and council members, both in Orkney and in Shetland.
Childcare Minister Marie Todd indicated that it won't be in the budget unless you support it. So it's up to you to support it if you want to get it in. What would you say to that?
Well, Marie Todd last night voted against Orkney and against Shetland. She therefore will presumably defy the will of Parliament. Therefore, I don't think she'll be a minister much longer. If you defy the votes, the majority vote in Parliament to support Orkney and Shetland, I'm not sure you're actually fit to be a minister at all. This is going to be a big test of people like her. Are they going to say they don't care about Orkney and Shetland and they don't care about Parliament and they only care about the SNP? That's what next Thursday is about.
You're listening to Good Evening Shetland.